have Karan Gilmurray, and this man has spoken at many different events, is an avid speaker, has written a book, and has been in the tech industry for over 30 years. And he'll be telling us why 72% of businesses make the wrong decisions and how to make the right ones. So I think that needs no more than that to let him get started on this.
Thank you so much. Alrighty. Good to meet you, folks. We've very limited time, so I'm going to talk really quickly. There's a lot of slides that I have to go through today. I promise not to mention ChatGPT beyond that one moment that I've just mentioned. That might be a relief to lots of people. Look, my background's automation, artificial intelligence, data analytics. I've won 5 global awards in the last year. I've written a book on organizational business transformation. This talk, by the way, is the first time I've given this, so it's either going to be brilliant or I'm going to die in my ass. I never mind which it is. This is on decision intelligence. It's a book coming out in June, but it's a Gartner hot trend as well. So let me jump in and let's see where we get to. Imagine a situation where machines look at the decisions that you make, score the decisions that you make, evaluate how you made those decisions, and then recommend the next time a better way of making a decision. That is the world of decision intelligence, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at 4 topics. Why is decision making critical? There's lots of stats and analytics out there at this moment to talk about that. One of them, the best I've seen, maybe it backs up the book, but one of the best I've seen is Bain. It says 95%, or there is a 95% correlation between the decisions you make and your business performance. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment, because when we think about business, sometimes we think about commercial businesses and everything else. But if you look at the healthcare industry, you could literally save, and this is statistics and analysis done by reputable research companies, 10 million extra lives a year if we make better decisions in those contexts. But I'm going to look at why is decision making critical? Why do we make bad decisions? Notice it said us, not businesses. How do we make better decisions? Because I better send you away with a better idea of going about this. And then how do you actually go about implementing this? If we take McKinsey stats, it says the S&P 500, they cost them over $250 million a year by making ineffectual decision making. If you multiply all that the way up around the globe, then there's a 4.26 trillion opportunity for companies to make more and better money, or greater money, from more and better decisions. As I mentioned, the healthcare sector, it's 10 million lives. That's critical and absolutely essential. If we actually used AI and machine learning to reduce fraud, risk, and everything else in the healthcare sector, we could double the impact of the benefits that we've got at this moment in time. Why do we make bad decisions? There are 2 reasons. One is human nature, and the second one's our environment. And human nature is our own biases that we have built into us. Believe it or not, there's 188 biases in our world, in ourselves. You need to look those up at least once in your life to understand them. But let's test out some of those biases. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at the screen, and don't say it out loud, but just decide which direction the train's actually moving in. Everybody got that? Now, would you do me a favor? Close your eyes for 2 seconds. Open up your eyes, and then tell the train to move in the opposite direction. Should start to move. That's us building in or telling us, our brain, what to think and what to do. Another example here. Which direction are the boxes actually moving in? The oddity is the boxes aren't moving at all. This is our brain sees things and tells us things and works out things before our eyes ever can. Now, if we get those types of decisions wrong, because it's gut, it's emotion, it's sunk cost fallacy and everything else, then that can lead to problems. You know, our unconscious bias, and it's nothing against us as humans. We've been around for 300,000 years or millennia. Our brain's only 100,000 years old, but the pace of technology and change and everything else that's happening at this moment in time helps us, or those biases helps us make decisions. 100,000 years ago, if there was a lion or a dinosaur, we had to run or stay. You know, and those things help us, but those also cause us problems. And now we've other problems in the world as well. We've too much information, we've a lack of information, we've got the wrong information, we've got overconfidence. And all these things, as I said, have impacts. And if we admit it to ourselves, very often we make gut decisions. We've got 2 candidates in a room, we're not too sure who to hire. Actually, they went to school with us, they must be nicer. And that can lead to all sorts of different consequences. Here's one of them, and this is a real-world example, believe it or not. If we make bad decisions, it is business, people. Remember, people leave companies because of bad decisions, bad managers, whatever else. Customers leave companies because of bad decisions. But here's an environmental impact, real story. So this is peaches grown in Argentina, packed in Thailand, and eaten in the US. You look at this, you go, how the hell could that happen? But that's just an example of bad decision making. I'm sure the people who did it didn't mean to do that, but when you draw it out, it's kind of scary. The second one's our work environment. I probably could add on lots more applications here all day long. I should have put conversational AI in this, or a chatbot as well, but this is the world that we live in. This is what we're doing to the employees who are in our companies, and we're wondering why they're making bad decisions, or gut-based decisions, or using the shortcuts that I mentioned earlier on. They're overwhelmed by data. And this goes to now, if we look at what's happening in the world, our human brains work on a linear plane. They're not getting any better, as much as we think. They're the same thing as was around 100 years ago. But data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, and conversational AI, and everything else in a work environment is moving at a hockey stick. So there's an ever-increasing gap there where our capabilities can't possibly keep up. Now, we've used technology like AI and data analytics and machine learning to catch up or to try and keep up, but it's not working just yet. And then we really don't help our businesses or people in our business. We organize very complex structures. We don't make clear organizational goals or organizational lines. Our cultures lack empowerment very often. We rely on over-consensus. Who has been in those meetings? There's not quite clear what the agenda is. There's only 20 people in the room, only 20. I was in one last week with 75. Then we decide there's not enough people in the room to make the decision, so we organize another meeting, and then we wait till everyone agrees, and off we go. And then we end up with a lack of real debate, or a death by committee, or all sorts of other stuff. But that's a fact, and that's a fact in most orgs. But how do we actually improve these things? So let's talk about the people side of things before I move to decision intelligence and talk about the technological side of things. So the first one is be aware of your own cognitive biases. Look up that thing, there is 188. Look it up, you'll be surprised. I looked at loads of them and thought, yes, guilty of many, and still am. Don't confuse good decisions with bad decisions. Believe it or not, a lot of things are down to luck. The only thing we can control is how we go about making the decision and how we assess the decision that we've actually made to determine whether we can make a better one next time. Set clear goals and roles for making decisions. How many of you in the room understand your business's mission and purposes and values, what the North Star is, what your contribution is to that actual outcome? And if you're managing teams, are they absolutely crystal clear? If I went to everyone in your business, do they know what's important? Do they know what success looks like, and do they know how to get there? This is something we're very poor at. We make a decision and then we never revisit it. So what about measuring and monitoring the decisions we make and learning from the decisions that we actually make, and then putting that data back into the next time we decide something? Very often we just bring the data we need to reinforce the opinion that we got or the thought that we wanted. How many of you bring in someone to play the role of someone who's contrarian or going to contradict the decision or tear the decision apart? There isn't a meeting that I don't go into where I have someone in my team playing that role, or more than one person. But what if that doesn't make sense? Well, what if we did this? I also bring in a lot of data as well into the meeting, not so much to confuse, but as long as I have the right information with the right person, set at the right level of the company, making the right decision, and we try and tear that apart, and we look at past decisions, and we monitor and we measure those, then as an individual, a team, or a group, I'm more likely to get the decision right. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but I'm going to be more right than rocking up in a room. And how many of you turned up not knowing what the agenda was about? How many of you turned up not reading the materials that have been prepared, or very often not prepared for the meeting? How many of you made decisions that have huge financial and people consequences without revisiting the decisions that you actually made in the past to determine whether successful or not? I think that would expose a lot of us if we monitored 12 months down the line how our decisions turned out and how we got to that place. That's the human side. Now let's look at the data and analytics side, because we're driven by technology. Someone said software is eating the world. Well, technology is probably eating the world. All our businesses are technology businesses these days, in whatever shape, form, or other that you want. So we may as well use technology to help us make sense of the world that we're in and turn what usually is in existence at the moment. A lot of people doing a lot of mundane stuff, not adding a lot of value, and getting out of bed on a Monday morning going, my God, why am I doing this again? And processing a lot of stuff to get them to do more intelligent work. So what if we augment and automate and support their decision making with better technology like RPA, conversational AI, or conversational business applications? And I'll explain what those are in a moment. But this is what we got in our orgs at the moment, or this is what's been delivered to date. So on the left-hand side, you'll recognize task automation and process automation, which is APIs, RPA, workflow technologies. Those have existed for some time. On the right-hand side, you have descriptive analytics. In other words, I'm using data analytics and tooling to understand what happened in the past, describe it. How many did I sell? How many do I buy, or whatever else? Then I use predictive analytics, so I'm using AI and machine learning and all sorts of whatever other AI you want to project forward with a degree of confidence. So if last month 70% of the 100 people bought my product, well, chances are 70% will buy it this month. And I can get more or less accurate by putting more and better data in and more and better analytics. Predictive analytics allows me to determine, I actually want this outcome. Here's what I want to get to, a certain profit number, a certain fraud reduction number, whatever else, and then work back from the mathematics to work out what do I need to do in business to get the result at the end of the day. And in the middle of this is decision focus or decision intelligence, where we combine the best of those in an application to make this make sense. I'm going to look at and talk about 3 layers of decision making: decision support, decision augmentation, decision automation. The broadest layer is the bottom. That's where we're going to give people information like data analytics in the moment that they need it, in the role that they need it, and they have the decision-making authority to make sense of that data and act upon it. Decision augmentation is using type like natural language processing or automation to help them make a decision. It's not making the decision for them, but the information's there. I worked in insurance brokerage for 13 years. Every time someone came to renew, we knew the propensity and the likelihood of someone renewing. Is it over 80? Is it over 60? Is it over 50? What do we charge them? What do we not charge them? How bad a debt? What can we do to upsell, cross-sell, move? That's all information someone had in front of them. They could make a great decision. And then decision automation is the stuff where there's volumes of decision to be made. And we can automate those to remove the cognitive load upon everybody in our businesses. 3 examples you recognize in the real world. Decision support, motorway signposts. Not making the decisions for us, but in the moment that we need the data, it's there. Decision augmentation, sat-nav, noise, there's traffic coming this way, move in this other direction. A decision automation, self-driving cars. Or all these things exist. Where can decision intelligence be used? Everywhere, absolutely everywhere inside of a business. How many of this product do I buy? How many people do I hire? How many calls do I make to customers to allow me to do this? How much marketing spend do I need to put in place? How do you go about putting this actually in place? First one is understand what your business goals are. Understand the decisions that need to be put in place to make you achieve or get to your business goals. And then you categorize those decisions in terms of the frequency and the complexity. And what you're going to try and do the first time round is look at the low frequency, low complexity items and try and put decision support systems in place that help people make the decisions in that context. Dashboards, data analytics, suggested direction. Remember, go back to the motorway sign so they know what to do, but they're making the decision. The second one is decision augmentation. Higher frequency, but the simplicity is a little bit less. So again, what you want to do is put in front of individuals dashboards with data and analytics and insight and recommendations, if you notice the bottom right-hand side. Do this because we're suggesting this, because we've ran the numbers, we've looked at the data, we've assessed the decision in the past, and this is what we think you should do. And decision automation is those relatively simple, high-frequency things. You should never need to check these decisions. They should just be happening inside of an organization. Imagine if this cognitive load come off you and you were free to do whatever you want to do. And that's where we can use, and I've seen lots of this today, the CAI, the conversational decision-making tools, the robots and whatever else, the AI in behind. Let that make the decisions and let everything flow seamlessly with no friction through your organization. So how do you do this? Always the question. Well, you need to build a decision intelligence platform. You need the data, you need the decisions, you need some actions and tools that's going to take that action, and then you need to assess the impact of that. You have all these tools, you have all this equipment inside of your business. You look on the left-hand side, you see the multitude of apps that's feeding the system and the data. You see the analysis, the engines, the NLP, the AI, and whatever else that's helping you interpret and understand it. And then you can use other technology and tools to help you make decisions or present decisions on screen, and then you can act upon it. Let's build this out, because there's always going to be internal and external data that you need to take into your organization to build out a data fabric of some sort or other. We have this: machine learning, automation, statistics. We need to get the data in, we need to normalize the data, we need to put the data there that's needed for the decisions. We need people in the business, and this is key, to understand how the data got there and how the analytics went in place. Otherwise, it's black box thinking. And when you process this data and you generate a decision or a support decision for someone, that can come up on screen. So you've got your fabric in place, you've got your decisions, now you execute. And the key bit here is build that loop in. Get the data to look at the decisions that was made. Get the data to look at the outcomes of the decisions that happened and the consequences of them. Feed that back into the system. So all of a sudden, as I said at the start, if the machine is looking at the data and understanding how it's put together and looking at understanding what was the outcome of those decisions, then it can support you to make better decisions the next time round. Because what you're trying to ultimately do through this methodology is turn it from people using guts and bias and inference and speed and whatever else of decision making that's all in their head, to try and create a collective brain inside your organization where all of this knowledge is literally internalized. It's produced into a data engine, a data fabric of some sort. So next time there's a decision to be made, the machine can tell you what to do, or at least very much suggest it. You're seeing a lot of that in generative AI at the moment, where it's collecting intelligence built in the past to give you a suggestion into the future. What are the benefits of you actually making better decisions inside your organization? I mentioned, bottom right, 10 million lives, double the budget. But think about this as well. If you can improve decision making by 10 or 20 or up to 60% inside your organization, you're going to get better business outcomes. Not only that, you're going to get better employee outcomes. I heard in the last talk, people are actually happier now, not less happy in work, because automation and conversational agents and Tracy or whatever else is helping them do things. Your customers will be a lot happier as well. So the employee and personal experience will be a lot better. So what are we trying to transform from? People making decisions supported by machines to an era of people making decisions guided by people. Where do you begin? 5 steps. Assess and score your decisions inside your organization. Work out what are the key decisions you need to make. Start making changes now. Make people aware of the cognitive biases. Organize your meetings better. Assess and score the outcomes of decisions that you've made in the past. Get the data and the decision making into the hands of people who can make great decisions. And those people are usually right beside the moment where these things need to happen, and very often we block them or we stop them from having data that allows them to do something slightly better. And then use the technology you got. The conversational business applications like Druid AI offer inside of the room, the RPAs of the world, the CAIs, the ALs and machine learning to allow you to implement this decision-making machine. Oh, one thing I do want to say though, just out loud, might not go back. This isn't just about technology, and I heard it from the last speaker as well. Make sure you involve your people in these projects at the same time, and then run a really great change management program to convince people that this makes sense, to work with them to understand the importance of the technology, the impact of the decisions that they made, and bring them on the journey. Because too often we hear about jobs getting killed, removed, died, or we add stuff on top and we don't listen to the people who are actually inside of the room. That takes time, that takes management. I think we're out of time for questions, but I'll leave it to you.
One quick one.
Yep, okay. Anybody got any questions? That's a lot thrown at you in the last couple of moments. I'd be personally relieved if there's none. Alrighty. If there is none, I'll let the next speaker up. If you want to know a little bit more about this, or you want to find me, that's a web address online. You'll see me on LinkedIn every day. Or if you want to talk about the conversational business application that I mentioned earlier on, that sits on top of all of your current applications with one single interface that allows you to use any multimodal method to talk to it. Then the colleagues from Druid are in the room at the stand just as you walk inside of the door. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.